Okay, get my notes in order here. All right, so it's the day after now, as I'm recording this. Anyway, the day after the debate, and I've been rewatching highlights of the second debate, so I've got my thoughts in order here, and I'm ready to give a little commentary, whether you want it or not. First, I'd like to start out by emphasizing, as I always do, that I am an undecided voter. For anyone listening or watching this who is maybe not subscribed to me or is not familiar with my usual political commentary, I am an undecided independent voter, as I always make a point of reminding everyone because Trump and Clinton are in a dead heat, and it is the undecideds who will determine the outcome of this election. It's always important to keep some perspective here and realize that, yeah, Trump and Clinton are the most unliked presidential candidates in history, and that's with due reason, of course. I don't particularly like either of them myself, which is why this is likely to be the most unbiased objective analysis you're going to hear on YouTube. Strident deplorables will obviously hail Trump as the God Emperor, Clinton Slayer, supreme winner of the debate. CTR shills and other partisans, Hillary groupies, will of course call it a Trump loss, but it's safe to assume that Trump won this debate. I wouldn't say that he crushed her by any means, but it was a solid victory, unlike the first debate, where it wasn't entirely clear who won. But this time around, I would say, I don't know, like 58 to 42 in favor of Trump. And, or, if I'm feeling very generous, maybe Trump won by 60%. Not a knockout punch, but it was strong. I mean, there's some knockout punch-worthy material, I guess. But I don't want to be overly generous because, clearly, as someone who's somewhat politically literate, listening to Trump, he doesn't exactly instill me with a lot of confidence to go out and vote for him. He just doesn't. And I don't care what anyone says, ultimately, because it's people like me, as an undecided in this election, who will be the tiebreakers should we decide to go out and vote at all. I'm not sure that I want to. Or I may vote a third party because, neither of these two unsavory choices appeal to me. Clinton as the career politician was the more substantive of the two, I thought, but knowing the media how it is, knowing that they cater to social media age, attention spans of goldfish, which is like a bunch of ADHD little kids with short attention spans, this election cycle is just, it's not a win at all for issue-driven parties, such as, the Green Party. Unfortunately, a lot of the voting public just does not care about policy, and that's a lose for America. Much of America, judging by kind of what we're seeing today, they like this reality TV show election. They like it the way it is. So, and that plays well for Trump. That element of drama whorishness that just lives to eat up juicy sound bites. This is a boon for him. Anyway, on to my notes here. So, I'm just going to break this down into each question and then sort of elaborate from there. Now, the first question was sort of a silly softball question. Do you feel you are modeling appropriate behavior for today's youth? Who cares? God, who cares? Today's youth are all online. This was like a Trump sandbag question. This is what they were setting it up. Today's youth, what are they? They're watching World Star hip hop videos. They're spending a large amount of time on sites like Tumblr, 4chan, Reddit, which arguably have a greater combined cache of pornographic and mature, quotes, content than Pornhub. This is what they indulge in. Kids are connected all day long, and they're constantly exposed to like some of the worst shit you could possibly imagine. You could tell that was a bit of a sandbag question for Trump, seeing as this weekend was the weekend of Grab Her by the Pussy, which has already become super memetic material. Like, once a thing becomes a meme, it defangs it in many respects. I would say, there's already an Urban Dictionary entry for "grab her by the pussy," and I might add that this particular phrase is very reminiscent of "fuck her right in the pussy." That I think many heard that tape. Actually, in fact, that private conversation. By the way, technically this was a breach of privacy, and I feel particularly sorry for Billy Bush because, not because I like him or anything, I don't even know who he is, to be honest. I'm vaguely familiar with him. I don't watch TV. But because it's not Trump, ironically, here who's suffering from the fallout of this. It's Billy Bush, who was suspended from his job with Good Morning America, or I don't know I think it's Good Morning America or whatever it is, a morning show that he hosts. Whichever one is the one with Al Roker. I know that much at least. And well, actually, I guess you could call it a bit of a conspiracy theory. But I was wondering, they put him on hiatus, and no one's talking to him. So this is the biggest story of the past 48 hours of the weekend, and no one's talking to the other person involved in the scandal, and I wonder why that is. I mean, call me conspiratorial. Anyway, as I was saying, I wanted to make a point of privacy versus knowing what we're really getting into with our elected officials. In this case, I don't particularly mind that there was a breach of privacy, although in principle, I care, right? If there were anything truly damning, I think the public has a right to know. Same as the Clinton email hacks. This is a breach of privacy technically, but as someone who occupies a public office, I think the public has a right to know what you really intend to do when you're running your whole campaign on Wall Street reform and Bernie Sanders style talking points. But in secret, you never intend to carry out any of that. So in the case of Trump's grab her by the pussy remark, did anybody really learn anything new or revelatory about him? Really? No, not really. A man whose third wife is a model half his age. A guy like that might be sexist. No way. Get out of town. So this is something long known and well understood by most adults. I think the issue was more, did Trump just admit to committing sexual assault? And I'm not going to dive into the moral abyss here on this. I'm just going to say that, if you really listen to what he's saying, he's outlining the relationship really, well, he's really exaggerating, first of all. I mean, he's exaggerating his exploits, air quotes, exploits. I mean, that is a common thing to hear from many men. I mean, the type of thing he's really describing, that world that he lives in. I mean, this is almost a kind of prostitution. It's consensual. It's like an Anna Nicole Smith, sort of J. Howard Marshall style relationship. A 90-year-old billionaire. What's attractive about him? Well, he's a billionaire. It's because he's matured well. JFK. There are many famous sort of philanderers in positions of power. And what's funny about JFK, too, actually, is I guess he was a handsome man for the time. And he was a serial philanderer. And the funny thing is there's a famous quote by him. And it's, he said words to the effect of, if I don't have a different woman every 3 days, I get terrible headaches, which I think is just fucking hilarious. That doesn't mean to say that, sexual assault doesn't happen in the world. That's not what I mean. Certainly it does. Just look at Bill Clinton, which Trump threw right under the bus. But in the case of the, grab the pussy tapes that claim against him, I think it's been largely exaggerated in order to tear him down. Which is ironic because the new Wikileaks email shows that it was the Clinton campaign that initially helped to build up Trump in the first place. And I guess the goal was to build up a populist candidate like Trump, which would hurt Jeb or Cruz, Ted Cruz. Should either of them get the nomination, the GOP base would be split. But, lo and behold, Frankenstein's monster has taken on a life of its own. And good. I say good. Fuck the two-party paradigm. I can't wait for it to crumble. I love watching it disintegrate before our very eyes. Some people criticize me too. Because they see it as a sort of lukewarm, semi-support of Trump. But the way I see it is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I want to see this two-party paradigm crash and burn. And I think Trump's doing a stellar job at it. So, go Trump in that case. So, the first serious question of the debate was really about the grab them by the pussy tape. Anderson Cooper, who we all know is a Clinton ally, started with, "You called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent, grabbing their genitals. That is sexual assault. You brag that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?" Again, that's not really what Trump says in the tape. I mean, in a nutshell, what he's really saying is when you're rich and famous, beautiful women will throw the pussy right in your face. He's bragging to another guy. Machismo. It really wasn't, I don't think it was anything, to be honest. He knew this was coming, and his answer, I thought, was rather weak. He continued with the locker room banter talk, bullshit. I mean, he just continued with a bullshit talking point. I didn't quite understand that. So he should have emphasized, listen, I've never forced myself on a woman, which, that's what he said. at last, at the very last bit of his sort of defense of himself. Hopefully, if it's true. I mean, if he is in fact guilty of something, and so some evidence should come out, then I say fuck him. Throw him under the bus. Same as Clinton. Like, I don't like either of them. Clinton broke the law. Yeah, she probably should be in jail. And likewise, if Trump has committed a crime, especially a sex crime, and there is real proof, there's real proof that surfaces, and not just media spin, exaggeration, then throw them both in jail for all I fucking care. Throw them both in jail. If you can find solid evidence on him that he, that there's like a real sexual assault has transpired, then I say, yeah, throw the book at him. So he should have come right out with it, though. I mean, I don't know why. He should have just came right out and said, look, I'm rich. I've been rich and famous a long time. Women throw the pussy in my face. Does that make me the devil? No, I don't think so. Who's the moralist who will judge me? Cast the first stone. But he's, the thing is, he's skirting the line now with evangelical voters and, family values conservatives. That's the rub. And that's one of the compromises that he's had to make. It really does show you how he's become a politician, which is, he has admitted that, during the debate. He said, wow, I can't even believe this. I've become a politician. Yeah, and it's true, and it shows. And then, you could tell he was flubbing a bit in the beginning. And he was being backed into a corner a little bit. So what's he do? He drops the Bill Clinton atomic bomb. We all knew this was coming, and it did. And, many cried foul. And I think partly, the criticism is that, well, Trump, you're not running against Bill Clinton. You're running against Hillary Clinton. To which I would say, well, it is important that he brought it up because Hillary is running as a pro-woman candidate. She's running on this sort of pro-woman, vote for me, I have a vagina platform. But she has engaged in character assassination against the victims of Bill's sexual indiscretions, to put it mildly, for years and years. And the left, right now, the political left, well, it's a spectrum, but there is a portion of the left spectrum right now which is just way off, the kind of social justice left that is way, way off their rocker. And one of their talking points is, you always believe the victim. You always believe, if a woman says she's been sexually assaulted, even in the absence of any evidence whatsoever, even if the man has a solid alibi, he was in, Boston at the time when this woman was raped in Los Angeles, you always believe the woman. And so it is interesting to see how people like that are rationalizing the whole Hillary Clinton thing. Because I think some of them are reluctantly on board. They're soft supporters of Hillary Clinton. So it's weird that Hillary, the feminist, she's a victim blamer when it's politically convenient for her and her husband's careers. So that's why I would say, yeah, that's relevant. And Trump even went a step further, and he brought up the fact that Hillary has defended in the past a child rapist when she was a practicing lawyer, and won, by the way. Well, and why would that be important? Well, if you pay attention to the media, it's not important. I would say this, the fact that she did her job as a lawyer is not what people find offensive. Like, that's not what I personally find offensive. What is fucked up about what went on there with that whole situation, and a lot of people are a lot more familiar with it now because they're Googling it, is that there's a tape of her laughing about it. Now, what I would assume the proper response should be, I would think, is, well, I had to defend this guy as his lawyer. I knew he was guilty. I knew he was a scumbag, but I ended up winning the case, somberly. What can I do? Somberly recounting the situation in a fashion such as that and saying, this is the way the legal system works. It's sort of unfortunate that I got caught up in this and he got off. But, when she talks about it, she recounts the story. She laughs about it like it's no big deal that she got off this guy who raped a 12-year-old girl. That's why it's relevant, because Hillary's supposed to be the woman's champion, and Trump is the evil sexist devil who who consensually philandered, but he's the sexist devil. Give me a break. This is clearly he's right to be able to use that as ammo. If they're going to character assassinate him, then he should be able to character assassinate her. So the next big question was the Obamacare question, and what is important about the Obamacare question is that, like, clearly Obama bullshit everyone on it. If you've got insurance, you got to keep it. Your premiums, they don't go up. All this stuff. And I think that hurts Hillary because, she wants to reform it. And it's already got a bad name. It's like, yeah, I want to reform. It's like a money pit, I mean, you think of something like, yeah, I want to take a bad movie like Geely, and I'm going to remake it. No, why would you do that? Don't do that. There's nothing to salvage there. So, and right now she's basically running as Obama 2.0. She's running as the status quo candidate. So, I don't know how that's going to work out because nobody wants the status quo. Nobody wants the status quo. And that's why they overwhelmingly, on the Democratic side, overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders. So, Trump's message is to scrap it, and I think that's that sounds more refreshing to a lot of people. It's going to resonate with more of the undecideds and independents and even some disillusioned Democrats who are maybe self-employed or small business owners, that Trump wants to remove that Obamacare burden off their shoulders, and that could sway some people. That's what I think. Same as his tax policies, which he kind of flubbed on, but I'll get to that in a little while. So then there was the Islamophobia question. I'm gonna knock the hell out of ISIS. Like that was the other thing that he said in regards to you've been accused of sexual assault. Listen, I'm gonna knock the hell out of ISIS. I'm gonna knock the hell out of ISIS. Like, okay, man. Okay, but that doesn't address the questions, and that's one of the things about Trump that I think undecideds and independents and people who are a little bit more highbrow, they watch that and they think, I don't like Hillary, but the way he's answering questions and that with just diversions and sort of nonsense, like I don't know that I can support him either. But Hillary, I figured would have a better, more politically satisfying answer on the whole Islamophobia thing, and yeah, she did. Now Trump, he should have had a better answer for this since he's known, or at least he's accused in the media for being the type of person. Well, he's accused in the media of being the sole cause and originator of Islamophobia, And I guess you could say, yeah, he has thrown some red meat to the people who would perpetrate, hate crimes against Muslims. So he really should have had he should be much better prepared than he is. But of course, he did much better than he did on the first debate. He was just terrible. Well, I mean, as far as Islamophobia, Islam is a crazy set of beliefs. And I'm saying that as an atheist. So, I look at most religions and I think, okay, that's wacky. But in the realm of wacky shit, Islam takes the fucking cake. It just does. Islam takes the cake in the realm of wacky religious ideas. And so many people are Islamophobic because of that reason. They watch the news. They're Islamophobic because they watch the news. They see what's happening in the world. Much of that is due to American foreign policy, of course, which Trump rightfully put some of the blame on Hillary for. But he could have said, as far as answering the question, and he started off okay on this, but really what he should have said was like, listen, we have a problem. To my fellow American citizens who are Muslim and moderate and have never committed a crime in your lives, I intend to be the law and order candidate. If you see suspicious behavior, yes, please report it. Also, right, so this is how we can complete it. Also, if I'm the president, as the law and order candidate, we will have justice. If anyone commits a religiously motivated crime against Muslims, they will face justice. They will face the weight of the law. We have freedom of religion in this country, and I intend to uphold American values. But that said, right, we do have a problem with Islamic extremism. Radical Islamic terrorism. It's like you can't just hit it with a talking point answer. But that's what they're doing because they're going for sound bites and not substance. Both of them, really. Although Hillary is a little more substantive because she's a career politician. But, this is what he should have been saying. It's like, listen, yeah, Islamic extremism, right. It's a real thing. We're all worried about it, including Muslims. And I would hope we can work together on it. The Trump administration and the American Muslim community. That's what I would have said, something to that effect. But Trump, he's so stuck on those talking points now that he's just too static. As I said, he did improve greatly over his crap first performance. He could still refine his game in some ways. I mean, he really don't overly refine it because Trump is what he is, and it's because he's sloppy that many relate to him. We already have a Hillary Clinton for that, for the canned robotic answers. So don't go down that road. But yeah, on that note, so he was much better. The second debate went more the way I thought, actually, as far as the first debate is concerned, the way I thought the first debate would go. But like I mentioned in my first debate analysis video, it's the end of a thing that's memorable and not the beginning. So whoever wins these last two debates will likely sway the undecideds who will move the election in favor of one or the other candidate. So Wikileaks and Taxes, that was the next portion of the debate. Trump, oh man, I mean, he should have mentioned this, but he probably didn't write his own tax plan, so he has no idea what's in it. But he should have said, listen, anything over zero amounts to more than what many corporations pay now, which is nothing because of all the loopholes. And, he could have said, listen, Hillary's proposed tax plan is status quo. It doesn't address those loopholes at all, really. So the best answer would have been, listen, anything over zero is better than what we're seeing now. So even if I lower the corporate tax rate, so even if the corporate tax rate is what it is now, and it's at a high percent, or Hillary raises it to an even higher percent, as long as those loopholes exist, they're still not paying anything. They're paying less than zero, in fact, in many cases, with some of the crazy rebates and things that they get. So if, Trump could effectively, but he doesn't do that. Trump, he's not very effective at follow-ups. So again, he was much better at follow-ups this time around, but he could refine his debating skills. So as far as WikiLeaks, Hillary, typical what I expected, she deflects to Russia, which is hilarious, actually, considering that just 4 years ago it was Romney, who was the Republican, who was accusing Obama, the Democrat, of being in bed with big bad boogeyman Russia. To which Obama responded, and this is a fantastically relevant quote, "You don't call Russia our number one enemy unless you're still stuck in a Cold War mind warp." Amazing. Amazing quote. I love that quote. And, as far as the WikiLeaks thing, also is funny enough, Hillary basically confirmed in a roundabout way that the emails are legit. She didn't deny they were authentic. What she said was, oh, Russia released that to help Trump. Okay? Right? Pay attention now. She didn't say, those are fake, those are forged. What she said was, okay, well, yeah, damning as they may be, what we should really focus on is the fact that Russia released damning emails, and not that they're fake or anything like that. We should just focus on the fact that the people who hacked it is Russia. So I find that interesting. And, if you pay attention also, even all the pro-Hillary neolib mouthpieces have deflected to Russia rather than claim they're false. Donna Brazil, who is I guess she's still the acting DNC chair, has instructed people not to read them because they may contain malware. I find that hilarious. So I think, judging by everything that we're seeing play out in the media, it's a very safe assumption that all of those emails that we're seeing are legit. In which case, this is info that the voting populace should know. So I'm glad that it's out there. Now, moving on to the war in Syria question. The war in Syria question is interesting because even leftist publications like Huffington Post call out Hillary for being basically an agent of the American war machine. They know. Everybody knows. She's basically Bush with a D after her name. That's what she is. We know that she's in good with the Bushes, and even George Bush Sr. has endorsed her. Trump says, let Assad and Russia deal with our mistake. And ISIS is our mistake, no doubt about it. A sentiment that Trump's running mate Mike Pence disagrees with. And so, by the way, he considers Dick Cheney his role model. Dick Cheney. Let that sink in. Mike Pence considers Dick Cheney his role model. Holy Christ. Just remember the presidency is a heartbeat away for this guy. A lot of people probably don't know this, or people who were alive at the time probably don't remember this. But many Ronald Reagan supporters, they did not like George Bush Sr. at that time when he picked him as his running mate. They didn't think he fit into Reagan's populist movement at that time, but it was considered a concession with the establishment to pick him. And interestingly enough, no sooner is Reagan elected in November 1980 that John Hinckley attempts to assassinate him in March 1981. So, coincidence? I'll let you decide. Now we've got Dick Cheney Jr., a heartbeat away from the presidency, pro-military interventionism Mike Pence. So, and he's paired with anti-interventionist Donald Trump, which, I was glad to hear, actually, when Trump said, I haven't spoken with Mike about this. I disagree with him on whether or not we should take military actions in Syria. One of the things about Trump that I actually like is the fact that he's anti-nation building. And, will that be the case if he gets in? I'm thinking that it probably won't be. I'm sure there's some drone programs will stay online. Presidents, well, the funny thing about that is, presidents, they don't have as much power as people think they do. They just don't. And even if the American presidency carried as much power as people thought, it's going to be an uphill battle trying to dismantle the military-industrial complex. So, let's see here. So, right, so energy policy. They were asking all the pressing issues. They were asking questions regarding all the pressing issues. Energy policy. Trump is pretty flat out about supporting many energy policies which are not great. Not great for the environment, and not particularly great for creating a strong middle class either, which is sort of what he's trying to go for. Hillary's been exposed, also, as being pro-TPP and fracking. So, again, as I've stated in many videos before this one, you have what are essentially two centrists. Except one is pretending to be more right-wing than he actually is, and the other is pretending to be more left-wing than she actually is. So when Hillary Clinton reassured debate watchers of her commitment to fighting climate change, how are we supposed to take it? How seriously is she really dedicated to this? Probably not. I mean, considering that she plans, if you read the WikiLeaks emails, she plans to support fracking. She supports fracking. She supports secretly the TPP. You have to have a public position and a private position. Now, in a WikiLeaks email, you discussed the importance of having a public position on something and a private position. Do you think that's being a two-face? Well, I was watching an Abe Lincoln movie. I mean, it was almost as bad. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was almost as bad as Trump with this. Do you think what you were talking about amounts to sexual assault? Well, I'm going to knock the hell out of ISIS. It's like, dude, no. What is this non sequitur answer? No. And she had a similar kind of situation with that. Now, you stated the importance that it's important to have one position that you basically assure your donors of, and then some bullshit that you tell your supporters, the little people, the peons. Do you think that you're a two-face? Well, I was watching an Abe Lincoln movie and I thought, boy, Abe Lincoln, what an amazing person that is. He took the high road, not like Donald Trump, but like me, I take the high road too. I'm Hillary Clinton. And let's talk about policies. I care about the children. I care about 9/11. 9/11, that was the other thing she did a lot. There was a lot of rehearsed answers that were basically like, what child will you produce for the emotional moment? No, don't do that. 9/11. Trump, I think he mentioned that. He might have said 9/11 once. But you could tell that he was more focused on kind of current terror threats like ISIS. Thank God. At least he was, for someone being kind of incoherent, he was rather relevant on that aspect of foreign policy in that, at least. So that was pretty funny. Nobody believes the whole Abraham Lincoln, I was watching a movie bullshit. So Hillary supports all these disastrous projects that are corporate masters wish. We know this. This is just what it is. As far as what America's energy policy will be, Donald Trump, he pledged to take advantage of what he called clean coal. And this is hilarious, and that's kind of a right-wing talking point. Clean coal. Because he cares about miners. I care about people. I care about the working man, the middle class. Now, my geriatric millionaire opponent. She thinks she has a plan for the poor and middle class. Now, let me tell you, as a 70-year-old wealthy man, what my plan will be. Come on, man. Come on. Please get out of my face. Two rich people fighting for the little man's vote to rule us all. Fuck, man. This is what our political system amounts to. So anyway, yeah, clean coal deposits that will last 1,000 years, according to him. Clean coal. I mean, this is... clean coal is... I don't know if people know this. Clean coal is horse shit. There's no such thing. That is a myth. It's a myth to the extent that, it's why his favorite country, China, is switching to renewables. Their rate of renewable energy is so dramatic compared to what the rate they're using coal and fossil fuels. And the real shame here is that now we've had 2 presidential debates and a vice presidential debate, and climate change has hardly been touched upon. In the second debate, climate change was treated as an afterthought, despite the world recently passing 400 parts per million CO2. Which, this is largely considered the CO2 point of no return. And now we've got Hurricane Matthew. You would think that somebody might mention Hurricane Matthew, the fact that it ravaged Haiti, but no. So, I guess to wrap this up, because I'm going a bit longer than I intended to, again. In conclusion, I would call it a strong win again for Trump, because although he lacks substance, Trump spent most of the debate on offense. He repeatedly attacked Hillary, and it forced her to take a defensive posture, thereby distracting her from effectively talking about policy, and it worked. Hillary was on the defense pretty much all night, and she struggled on it, and therefore she suffered for it. As far as remaining coherent and on point, he did significantly better than the first debate. He even managed to point out proper names like Soros and Blumenthal. Maybe one of the biggest hits he got overall was saying, "Yeah, I used federal tax write-offs, just like all your donors did." Nate Silver, who is, I don't know, either dishonest or a total idiot, he called the debate a tie. A tie? Really? Hillary was booed. Trump was never booed at all through the night. At least that's one thing to point out. Another would be that he had the most laughs and the most applause of the night as well. Not totally scientific, I realize, but a good overall indicator of who won. And don't think Trump bringing up Bill Clinton's sexual assault scandals didn't matter either, because I specifically waited a day to record this so I could gauge the next day fallout. And Trump, he held that press conference before the debate with Paula Jones and Juanita Broderick, who accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault. And so what I wanted to show was this. Let's look at the Google Trends. So, Paula Jones. Oh my God. Look at that. Look at that. How about Juanita Broderick? Look at that spike. Look at that fucking spike. Holy shit. Do you think any of these people searching these names are women by chance? Do you really think it won't influence female voters? Because I guarantee it will.